Jersey conversation ever. Welcome, everyone, to this week's edition of The Big Effing Deal, BFD, with myself and the wonderful JoJo from Jersey, my girl. We were just having a very funny conversation off camera about flaws in our teeth, and it was the least Jersey conversation ever because I chipped mine on a pomegranate seed, and Joe was talking about filing hers down. With a pencil eraser.
With a pencil. I was in 4th grade. I was sitting in my room doing homework and I couldn't figure out a math problem. So the pencil I had didn't have an eraser in it. And I was just chewing on it. And I was just doing one of these. And then I realized like there was all this powder in my mouth. I whittled away my own tooth.
Well, don't feel bad. My mom used to eat glue when she was a kid. She was
literally glue eater?
Yes. Remember like that Elmer's glue?
Yeah.
It wasn't toxic, but like, yeah, she would eat the glue. So I mean, we all had our things when we were kids. It didn't hurt her too bad. She was able to produce me from her loins. So I guess we're all right. The kids are all right. Oh my gosh. Well, since the last time we were all together, there's been a couple BFDs that have happened, just 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But this week we have narrowed them down to our BFDs for the week. And as we said before, please put what you think the BFD for you is today or this week. Please go ahead and put that right back into the chat so we can talk about it during the show. But we have a great guest for you this week on the show. We've got our good friend Miles Taylor, who runs Defiance, which is an amazing organization. He was the former chief of staff over at the Department of Homeland Security. He was anonymous. He was the guy who has been outspoken against the Trump administration and is doing great work with that. So we're going to bring Miles in a minute to talk to us about what's happening with DHS, because who better than to talk about DHS than Miles? But we've got some BFDs for you. Mine this week is going to be on Epstein, because just because Trump and Pam Bondi say it's over, it ain't over.
Hell no.
Joe, what's your BFD this week that we're going to talk about?
CBS censoring Colbert, censoring yet another late night talk show host because state media, thanks Bari Weiss. You're a doll. Yeah, so that's going to be mine.
Yeah, this is just the gift that keeps on giving here over at CBS, or the coal in your stocking that keeps on giving, because Bari Weiss is just destroying CBS, and it's just part of a larger pattern that we're seeing, which is why we do what we do here, and why independent media and independent voices are so important, given all of the things that are going on out there in the zeitgeist to try to silence us, whether it's arresting Don Lemon or this bullshit here again with the censorship, using the FCC to try to bully and intimidate corporate media organizations. Like, it's just nuts. So we're going to be talking about all that. We've got a couple other little BFDs, little BFDs, little big effing deals. Don't mistake that with like Little Dick Energy. That's something different. These are little BFDs. Very different.
Yeah. No,
But without much further ado, we want to get right into our conversation with our friend Miles Taylor to talk a little DHS.
Oh, who doesn't want to talk about DHS?
Miles, welcome, my dear friend.
Hi, friends. Great to be here.
We before we get into the fact that ICE is spending tens of millions of taxpayer dollars on detention camps and, basically warehousing people, can we please talk about the Wall Street Journal expose about Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski and her fucking blankie, and, him and him wanting to play like he's a tough guy, wants a gun and a badge, and just like the obnoxiousness in which these people are running one of the most important departments in our government, and they're running it into the ground.
It's weird. Look, everything about that story is weird. If people haven't read it, they should, because you will come away realizing that the third largest department in the federal government is being run like a bad valet service and is totally focused on the wrong things. Now, I said after the first Trump administration, when I came forward, that one of my greatest frustrations is that on a daily basis, rather than focusing on the 250,000 men and women of the Department of Homeland Security, we were forced to focus every day on one person, the president, who needed constant babysitting. And this was a dilemma and a constant tension, keeping us from doing the things we needed to do to protect you, the people who were literally paying us to protect you from cyber attacks and terrorist attacks and foreign spies. Now, it seems like they are leaning into that. They are leaning into the fact that they have to serve this one man. There's no tension there. There's no tension there. They're delighting in the fact that this one person deserves their focus and not empowering those 250,000 people to protect the country. If anything, they're trying to hijack that workforce to get them to do the bidding of that one man. That is crazy. That is backwards. And this journal story showed anecdotally how that is the case and how this is being managed like a micro cult of personality, completely derivative of Donald Trump's cult of personality. And, you know, that would be corrupt and bad if we were talking about a business being mismanaged that way. Again, we are talking about the entity that's on the front lines of protecting people. Literal lives are on the line when you talk about this kind of mismanagement.
Yeah, it's crazy. But you warned about a lot of this in your book, Blowback, because you saw it from the inside. You forecast that much of this would happen. You didn't have the blankie and the side piece and the cosplaying.
I haven't talked about the blankie. You know, people don't know about that, but I'm sure that'll come out now.
Right. But that's so crazy is that people are like, oh, Kristi Noem should resign. People with a brain, right? Or, you know, Donald Trump should fire her for this blatant mismanagement, this $70 million flying fuck palace, you know, for her and a very married Corey Lewandowski. But the difference between, to your point too, the difference between the first season of this shit show and this season of this shit show is that Kristi Noem is not going to get fired, in my opinion, because Donald Trump she's doing what he wants her to do, which is serving him, right? As long as she and Corey and Steven and everybody else goes out there and fillets him and does his bidding, then they can do anything. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when some tactical pants and some fancy hotel lotion was enough to get Scott Pruitt removed or resigned. But now we're talking about just absolutely blatant. That one plane costs more, I believe, than all the DHS planes combined.
Yes.
They fired the pilot, the Coast Guard pilot, because he forgot her blankie. So let's talk about the differences between what you saw and what we're looking at now, and why, or if you think Kristi Noem will resign or be fired.
Well, let me pick up that last part first. I would agree with you, Joe. I don't think it seems very likely in general that Donald Trump wants to throw overboard people who have been unflinchingly loyal. This is what he wanted that he didn't have in a first term, is people willing to break the law for him. I mean that very, very specifically and explicitly, not as hyperbole, not as a broadside. He, on an almost weekly basis, told us to do things that were illegal, that we would have to send to our lawyers, and our lawyers would say, you can't do that, or you'll go to prison if you do that. And so there was this constant fight with the president over things he wanted to do. Now, some of the time it's not because he wanted to break the law. A lot of the time it was because he was stupid. He literally just didn't know what the law was. And we're talking about obvious things too, like things you can't, spend taxpayer money on. But then other times
we're trying to cross.
That's right. You cannot shoot unarmed people. This would get anyone thrown in jail.
Well, apparently you can.
Now you can.
And that's why you keep the Kristi Noems in place, is because in a second term, he's got a team that by all accounts has not resisted and pushed back. They have leaned into it. After Renee Good was killed, after Alex Preddy was killed, no one had to tell Kristi Noem, you must accuse these people falsely of being domestic terrorists. She just did it. She's like a pull string doll on a loop, ready to say Donald Trump's favorite phrases. Those are the types of people he wants in. And so he would rather keep them dangling there and unsure of whether he's going to fire them, to keep them loyal. Now, this is a thing he tried to do in the first term. You remember all the news stories about Trump threatening to fire cabinet secretaries. Right. And then a lot of them just resigned or left because they didn't want to put up with that environment where the president was constantly leaking stories to the press about whether he might fire them. That was his way to keep them on a hook. Yeah. Now, a person with a conscience says, fuck that. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to leave. These people are desperate for his affection and attention and will keep being loyal. And so, look, if he does get rid of a gnome, it's only because she's started to dissent, or she started to break from him, or she's not implementing orders enough, or a secondary reason, if it's Donald Trump, is he doesn't think she looks good on TV anymore. And I mean that literally too. If he doesn't think they're performing well on television anymore, he will get rid of them. But those are really the only two reasons. And then I shudder to think who might come in place after that. We should have no illusions that any of these cabinet members will be replaced by more moderate people. No illusions whatsoever.
Well, that's part of the that's part of the difference between this term and last term, right? At least last term, there were some people who were competent, and there were guardrails inside these departments, whether it was the inspector general's offices or the general counsel's offices, that actually put the kibosh on the crazy illegal shit. Those people are long gone. I mean, last year at this time, we were watching the decapitation of our federal government and the career people being run out of these agencies under the false pretenses of Doge, which we all knew was a bunch of bullshit. And it was just a way to do that, to basically cleanse the entire federal government of anyone that would get in their way, and to get all of our personal data, so that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and this really scary network state that they're building, the surveillance state, to that's going to have long implications that way beyond anything we even know about now, with these bastards that are all up in our personal information and manipulating it and using it. And don't even get me started about the AI component of it. Like, we just found out that they used an AI bot in the Maduro raid in Venezuela. I mean, good God, but that's another conversation for another day. We'll explore that on another day, when we can talk about the dangers of what Peter Thiel and AI and these companies are doing. But bringing it back to DHS, some of the more concerning parts of the revelations about Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski, I mean, those of us inside the Beltway, we've all known about this affair with them for years. This has been going on for years. And the dynamics there with Susie Wiles, she hates Corey Lewandowski. People hate Corey Lewandowski everywhere he goes. He's just been bouncing around because Trump likes him, because he's been so loyal to him. So he forces people to make him be a part of whatever it is that he wants. So they figured, all right, we'll put him over there with her at Homeland Security. But he's not even a real employee. I don't think people understand this. He's a special government employee, which is only supposed to be 130 days. And they're not supposed to have the type of power that he has. He's running around firing people and doing all this. He's not supposed to be able to do all that. And then he's skirting the system, they said in the story, by not swiping the card to get his access card to get into DHS, so that it doesn't clock in 130 days, right? This is all. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Miles, but when you're a special government employee, you don't have to give up your private sector job, right?
No. And so there's a couple things here I would say, Tara. The obvious is just blatant potential corruption here. Mm-hmm. The fact that you could be in that top level position and be maintaining, allegedly lobbying clients that might be lobbying those agencies, you don't need to explain that any further to people. That is some serious potential double dealing there. That is the type of thing that would get ordinary folks investigated and arrested. I mean, really. The second thing, I go back to the management of this sprawling department responsible for protecting people's lives. Corey is notionally in the job that I was in. He's playing the role of chief of staff, but using these bureaucratic gimmicks.
Sorry, you said staff. I had to laugh. I'm sorry.
Joe, we're going to lose Joe for the rest of the program, because that pun, that unintentional pun, is just going to keep coming back. I'm going to keep my cool. I could lose it too.
I'm so sorry.
But you know, it's a bureaucratic fiction that they're playing, and I will tell you, that is the second most important job in the Department of Homeland Security. I'm sorry to anyone who's ever been the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. Under most people who've run that agency, their chief is the second most important. Why? Right. Because that's the only person that they usually empower to go speak for them. And when you've got a really tight day of intelligence briefings and threat meetings and meetings with the president, you and the secretary can't be everywhere together at the same time. You got to go send that chief to have the meetings that you can't have, to make the decisions that you can't have. And right now, that's apparently Corey Lewandowski. And he's not supposed to be doing that under the law, the way these SGE things are envisioned. And he is doing that. And so you have this really weird circumstance. And I hear this from people firsthand at DHS, where they're like, well, when Corey gives an order, technically he shouldn't be able to give these binding orders as a special government employee. So am I to treat what he says as the gospel and something I move forward with or not? And so there's these daily micro tensions all around the department of how that place should be running, who's in charge, how decisions are being made. And by all accounts, the secretary's office is more insular than ever. So people don't know what's going on. That leads to total cascading dysfunction across this department.
And it makes us less safe. But also, right, he had at least one person, I believe, fired. He moved somebody else to FEMA, which is, I guess, a demotion, apparently.
It was the lawyer. It was the lawyer who said he couldn't have the gun.
Yeah, because he wanted to carry a gun like a big boy.
I got to tell you, Joe, on that point, this is an interesting legacy from the first administration. We had a similar circumstance in the first Trump administration. I've never talked about this publicly, but we had a number of appointees that were assigned to us from the White House. Like when you're running these agencies, often you'll get a phone call from presidential personnel. They'll say, we had a guy on the campaign who really wants to work at DHS. And you say, well, what are his qualifications? Well, he worked at a Wendy's and then he campaigned for Donald Trump. And you're like, I don't have a place for him. They're like, well, you have to because the White House is telling you. And so you stick them in some job where hopefully they can do the least amount of harm possible. In this administration, they're putting the Wendy's guy in charge of major offices and multi-billion-dollar programs, like the guy who used to mow lawns, who's in charge of terrorism prevention at the Department of Homeland Security. It's like a 23 or 24-year-old kid.
Yeah. Sorry, now you said mow lawns. I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh no, it's all falling apart. It's all falling apart.
I'm sorry, but Corey Lewandowski's qualification is mowing lawns. Moving on.
I mean, apparently he mows them quite well because he's mowed a few. Wasn't Hope Hicks one also?
I think we lost Miles. It's a family show.
Listen, folks, it's for a lot of people, it's a Monday morning, even though it's a Tuesday. And their week is just going to fall apart after this. It's just going to fall apart.
Please go.
This is why you tune into new media, people. It's because, like the censors would have already killed us on cable news, but you get this raw and unfiltered.
That's what
Corey. Back. Oh, this is it. I mean,
sorry. You were saying during the
I'm gonna have to do the Barack Obama. His thing is always, if you speak slow and deliberate, you won't mess up. Let me be clear. All right. Let me be clear. He was mowing the lawn. He was mowing the lawn.
Raw and unfiltered.
Raw and unfiltered.
Because
he's the chief of staff. Yeah. Okay. You know what? They're going to be clipping this on right-wing social media and not even realizing that they're just doing our job for us.
Correct. Yeah, again, oh my God.
Okay. You were saying anecdotally.
Yes.
Well, they're putting these people all over the department who they're not capable of doing their jobs, and they're willing to say yes to anything. And I will say, Joe, to a bigger picture, you mentioned the revenge against these lawyers and other people. This is, I will say again, a microcosm of what you see from Donald Trump. You now see 100 little Trumps throughout the administration. You can't read that Wall Street Journal story about what's happening at DHS and not say to yourself, oh, these are little Trumps. They're all acting like little Trumps and they're carrying out his views. And the revenge is the first big sign. Revenge and money are the two hallmarks of the little Trumps. On the revenge side, we saw the Reuters study last November, if you guys remember this, that found that on average, Donald Trump took more than one revenge action per day in the first year of his presidency. 470 revenge actions after, I think, 325 days. That pace has essentially continued. And you see his department's doing the same thing, taking revenge against people, firing people, moving them to Siberia so that they don't, they're not seen by the front office. This is what's happening to good civil servants every single day. The second thing is money, is the way that they're handling money, spending money, potential double dealing. There are huge red flags about how the Department of Homeland Security has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in its media budget on allies of Kristi Noem.
Right.
This is red flag impeachment investigation type stuff.
Just
and
to
it's
be specific on that, because I don't think this has gotten enough attention. The DHS spokesperson, the DHS spokesbitch, Tricia McLaughlin, is married to the CEO of the Strategy Group, which is the media consulting lobbying firm that's gotten tens of millions of dollars out of a $220 million marketing budget that was awarded to them in a no bid contract situation. So for those of us who speak government procurement speak, you have no bid contracts, and then you have contracts for things like this that you're supposed to go and put in proposals and RFPs and all this and go through a review process. That didn't happen here. Why? Because Kristi Noem's boyfriend, Corey Lewandowski, who also works for them, the husband of Tricia McLaughlin, is the CEO of the Strategy Group, and they are all in cahoots together because they also were running her when she ran for re-election for governor of South Dakota. They were also her media team doing that. So when you saw Kristi Noem in her stupid fucking hats, riding horses, and the big productions of, looking like a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, that was paid for by our tax dollars going to a firm that is in her orbit.
I will say, guys, it's the type of thing. I mean, it sounds terrible when you describe it that way, Tara. I couldn't have even had the thought of that when I was at DHS. If that thought had crossed my mind, I would have felt like handcuffs were already hitting my wrists. Right. I would be like, oh, this is such an obvious thing when you're a government employee that you can't use your position to financially benefit yourself or your husband or your fucking cousin or your friend Ted. It doesn't matter. You cannot steer government money to a place, even if it has the appearance of benefiting you and it doesn't benefit you, or the appearance of benefiting an ally or a friend. It is like one of the most, in fact, day one in government, day one, when you go into an administration, you sit down, you meet the ethics lawyers, and they show you a PowerPoint that tells you do stuff like this, you go to prison.
And so you're watch it once a year. You're supposed to watch it once a year to review.
Once a year, and you got to sign a piece of paper. So what I will say is this, and this is a warning not just to the people at DHS appointed by the White House. This is across the Trump administration. These things aren't going to be forgotten. You feel safe right now because the big man is in that job. He won't be in that job forever. Even if he tries to outstay his welcome like he did last time, nature will eventually have its say. And no matter what, he will eventually be gone. You will not have your mob boss protector. The rule of law will actually be restored. It's not going to be Democrats getting revenge against you. It's not going to be anti-Trumpers, coming to get you. It's literally going to be the rule of law that you violated, an investigation that's appropriately predicated, and you should be very fucking worried about your future. So if this message happens to get to any of those people inside the administration and they think they might have been involved in something like that, your best opportunity is go blow the goddamn whistle and save your neck, or go lawyer up, because after this is over, you're toast.
Yeah, instead of that video that you guys got shown every year, they're probably getting one the opposite. It's like a how-to video. It's like how to commit ethics violations.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just log into Polymarket, predict that we're going to break the law, make money off of the prediction of breaking the law.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
But speaking of blatant corruption, right? It's not just with Kristi Noem and her boy toy. It's also DHS buying these detention center concentration camp warehouses, right? So we have one here that ICE paid $128 million. That sold for $29 million 2 years ago. And guess who owns this warehouse? Just guess. if you're thinking, is it a Russian-based real estate company? Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. They're not even hiding this shit. The appearance of impropriety stuff jumped out the window, lit itself on fire, and ran itself in front of a train. Like, they don't even care anymore. They're just telling us, yeah, okay, what are you going to do? Try and stop us.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just the president committing an impeachable offense every single week. It's his cabinet members. And this is potentially the type of thing that would warrant an investigation and potential impeachment, especially if the secretary's office was knowingly directing funds in that realm, making decisions about contract awards, and potentially to a company owned by a foreign adversary. Now, this story is in its earliest stages. I think we're all trying to figure out more about this company. How was this decision made? But yet another thing that would warrant, an extraordinary inquiry. And I mean that seriously about what I said about Trump. I mean, statistically, the man has committed more than an impeachable offense a week. And I'll define that for you. Let me go back to the revenge statistic I gave you. It is illegal and unconstitutional to selectively and vindictively use the powers of the presidency to go after one of your enemies. That's not lawful. That's unconstitutional. And if Donald Trump has done that on average more than one time a day, well, then he's almost committed an impeachable offense a day. If you look at last year. Now, some of those, they've bubble wrapped and legalese to make them seem legitimate, but we all know what the president's purpose is behind these revenge actions and executive orders and threats against CEOs and companies and broadcasters. That's unconstitutional. And then you add to that the thing Trump was impeached for in the first place. Remember Ukraine? He was impeached over Ukraine, not because he had a perfect phone call. He was impeached because he withheld money that Congress told him to spend on a thing.
That's right.
Almost every day in this Trump administration, they are playing games with the money and not spending money Congress tells them to spend. Like, we appropriated you money to spend on USAID. We appropriated you money to spend on the Department of Education. We appropriated you money at the Department of Homeland Security to spend on this thing, and they're spending it on something else. That violates the power of the purse. That is unconstitutional. That is illegal. He was already impeached for it. And now they're doing things like that every week. Is they're misallocating congressional funds. So take that to the bank. At least once a week since he became president, he's committed an impeachable offense as bad or worse than what led him to get impeached in the first place. And I'll go back to my point earlier. We will not forget. And there will be things like this shady deal for a Russian warehouse that will get looked into afterwards. They're hoping that by flooding the zone, we will forget. But you know what? We're crowdsourcing the accountability this time, and we've got all of it documented. All of it will be reviewed.
I think that's an important point, Miles, because people feel like, holy shit, like they're going to get away with this. How are we ever going to have a real accountability for these people? Of course, we say colloquially that there needs to be Nuremberg-style trials at the end of this administration to hold all these people accountable. And I honestly do think that there has to be some version of that, because there are so many aspects inside this government that have been completely abused and they've done illegal things. And unless as a country, I don't want to hear this bullshit about, just pardon everybody, we need to move on for national healing. No, fuck that. Okay, we are way beyond just being like, there was just a couple of untoward things. Let's just move on. No, this has been a fundamental transformation and reshaping what our government, our democracy, what our constitution means, our separation of powers. Like, we are literally at an inflection point here, and the 2026 midterms are just the beginning to start to try to do something to hold these bastards accountable, to try to put these pieces back together the best that we can. I mean, this could be a generational fight, given all the damage they've done so far.
Two things I would say to folks who are really stressed about that, rightfully. One, be patient. The accountability will come. But two, you don't just have to rest on the patience. There can be accountability now. And part of that is, let's elect leaders who will take over, hopefully the House and the Senate, who launch congressional investigations. We need the political opposition to come into power in the House and the Senate. But even more immediately, ordinary people can urge folks inside the government who witnessed the wrongdoing to document it and come forward. I mean, our organization is funding a whole bunch of whistleblower defense efforts. We're paying for the lawyers for people who come forward and disclose the whistle. One of the organizations that we're paying for the lawyers for helped disclose a few weeks ago that ICE was training people to violate the Fourth Amendment. Yep. We wouldn't have known about that. That's the commission of a crime. We would not have known about that if there weren't government employees who said, actually, rather than be complicit in this, I'm going to go tell the truth. I'm going to file a whistleblower complaint. I'm going to document it in perpetuity so this doesn't get forgotten and it gets investigated. That's real. That's important. That's urgent. That's happening. It's only happening because there are people around the country willing to fund that. That wasn't some big George Soros foundation that's like helped fund these lawyers. That is Americans giving $3 and $5 who are helping to pay for that type of legal defense to make sure that can happen. So real actionable steps can be taken by ordinary folks to make sure there's accountability now for these guys.
And that marries the 3 points that the two of you just made collectively, because it marries the accountability with the purse strings. And by the way, this Fourth Amendment whistleblower complaint is part of what the Democrats are demanding right now in terms of whether or not they're going to fund DHS, right? So that leads me, and they got that information, which again should be a foregone conclusion. That they have to fight for things that are in the Constitution is really just kind of insane, and it's jumped the shark. But that leads me to this question that I have that is, I think, sitting in a lot of minds right now in terms of accountability in this moment, because the Democrats are not funding the Department of Homeland Security right now, ostensibly, unless the administration gives them some very basic things like you can't break into somebody's house without a, warrant, etc. The masks, all of these things, body cams. I mean, we could argue all day long about whether or not these things will make any difference, but they're not agreeing to them nonetheless. But can you kind of explain for me, because this is a question I have related to ICE and DHS funding, because you've heard Chris Noman, Mushmouth Homan say, but we're already funding ICE, it's funded since 2028 because of the big beautiful bill. And it's like, well, what is
That's pretty good, Joe.
Thank you so much. I've really been working on that.
I have some extra marbles. I have some extra marbles you can put in your mouth.
But like, so the question is like, well, not funding DHS, what does that mean? And what are the implications, if any, for stopping what ICE is doing?
Yeah, well, look, here's the real story. This is a really weird year for it to happen because something that's never happened before happened last summer when the so-called big, beautiful bill was passed. A one-time multi-billion-dollar cash infusion was given to ICE and CBP. And that usually doesn't happen because usually how the whole government is funded is once a year, the government has to come back to Congress and say, I want my allowance to pay for all the things I want in this coming year. And it gets a once a year infusion of cash. When this bill was passed last year,
just to explain real fast, Miles, as the former Hill staffer, the reason why you would do appropriations every year was to make sure that the money was being spent properly. That was the whole thing. It was an oversight issue because you didn't want to give these long-term, multi-year funding pots of money so it could be abused. You wanted to make sure that Congress was paying attention and that there was oversight, so they'd have to come back every year and justify how much money they spent in the year prior. The only thing that didn't do that yearly was the Farm Bill, which was every 5 years because farmers and agriculture needed that longevity because of crops and the cycles and things like that they just couldn't. They needed to be able to plan. So anyway, just a little bit of background on that so people understand.
Allowance, understands that this is why you're not giving your kid $5,000 this week and giving him his allowance for the next 7 years because you're like, well, he's going to go spend that on stupid shit, and I'm going to have no more say to try to steer him the right direction. This is exactly what happens with departments and agencies. And it's no coincidence that in that Trump administration written bill, they got a secret multi-tens of billions of dollar infusion for ICE and CBP. They wanted that. They didn't want to have to come back and ask for permission because their plan was to launch this sweeping nationwide mass deportation operation that they knew would shock the conscience of the country. And they didn't want to have to go back to Congress and ask for the money. And unfortunately, there were a few people last summer screaming about this, but the Democrats put the attention on other things. And I think some of them are regretting that now. They are saying that they're regretting letting that bill go forward. And they would have fought a little bit harder and gone a little bit more nuclear. But we are where we are. But here's what I would say. So even though ICE and CBP, the forefront of this immigration operation, are funded, other agencies and DHS that are contributing to those efforts still have to go ask for their allowance. FEMA has been participating in those efforts. The Coast Guard has been participating in those efforts. A whole array of support organizations at DHS headquarters are participating in those efforts. Hell, the office of the secretary, her salary, her airplane have to be approved every year by Congress. If they want to literally ground the Secretary of Homeland Security because she's misspending her allowance, this is what they need to do, is shut down DHS, because they can only run so long without the money that they need from Congress. Now, are there going to be consequences, Joe? There's going to be consequences. Eventually, lines at airports are going to get longer. The administration is going to try to turn the screws by saying that it's even worse than it is, and services provided by DHS will start to dwindle. But we're in this very surreal moment where you've got someone like Senator Chris Murphy saying, I think it's more dangerous for the American people to fund DHS right now, a DHS that's violating constitutional rights, than not to fund it. That is extraordinary. So yes, this is leverage for Democrats. And I would say they better fortify their spines, because you're right, Joe. I looked at that wish list, and as someone who is pro-law enforcement and generally pro-DHS, a department I've served in 2 presidential administrations, I don't want to just cut off that department. But when it's violating the constitutional rights of Americans, that's the most basic wish list you can have. And they need to stick to that. There's no compromising on that, because you compromise on that and you're done. You compromise on the Fourth Amendment, then it doesn't exist anymore, and the rule of law is dead. They've got to hold firm on this. And I hope that they do all the way until the administration is forced to capitulate to every single one of those line items.
Yes. Amen. Because I think a lot of people didn't fully understand what the point of the shutdown is, because now, I mean, shutdowns used to be a big deal. Now it's just another tool that the Trump administration uses to try to politicize. And it's like people, unless there's, planes falling out of the sky or something awful happening, a lot of the American people don't feel necessarily what the shutdown is doing, what the impacts are. And I was on CNN on Friday night on Abby's show, and I was asked directly, well, what leverage do Democrats have? Because I was making the point, listen, Republicans run the government. This whole, it's Chuck Schumer shut down and it's the Democrats' fault to shut down. No. You motherfuckers run the government from the White House to the courthouse. Okay. Every level of government, Republicans are in charge of. The Democrats are using what they can, and the minority, to not make it easy for them, but it's bringing attention to the things that you just mentioned. I'm like, this way they can put the screws to them and put pressure on it, and the American people pay attention and realize what the Republicans are doing. And that's the leverage. It's political leverage. And you also have enough Republicans that are squeamish about it that they can't ram it through. Because if they did, then the Democrats wouldn't have the ability to do this. But it's Republicans that can't govern, because there are actual Republicans that are worrying about losing their damn elections in the midterms, because it's so grossly unpopular what Trump is doing. And we're going to talk about that in later in the show.
Correct. And I would say, Joe, when you mentioned the Constitution, that's the simplest way for Democrats to message this is, look, I'm only going to vote to turn funding back on for DHS when it's complying with the law and the Constitution. That's an easy thing for people to understand. Oh, I get it. They're breaking the law and they're violating the Constitution. Who would vote for that? Right. That's we're not just demanding policy changes or because we don't like the president. The manifesto of the political opposition in this country has to be the nation's founding document, the United States Constitution. And if a department's out of compliance with that, you can't vote to fund it. That's it.
And a great reminder to Tara's point too, about Republicans running everything right now. We have a State of the Union coming up next week. I want to talk about that because it's a good pivot to something that you're doing. But a State of the Union where Donald Trump's going to be speaking with a partially shut down government of his own making. But you are running some counter programming at defiance.org. that I will be helping along with at the pre-show, called State of the Swamp. Again, defiance.org. Check it out. This is what I think a lot of people are going to be very hungry for this, but it's a really good reminder of all of the things that we've been talking about. But also, they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the Oval Office, and part of the government is shut down, and everything that they're doing is deeply, deeply, deeply unpopular. But look at this lineup. Miles, holy shit. Is Robert De Niro going to be there?
He is. And he's going to be our keynote rebuttal. And you know why? No one gets under Donald Trump's skin more than Robert De Niro. And I think it's because
True.
Yeah, he's the biggest actor in America. He's someone Donald Trump has watched throughout his career. He can't stand it when people he's looked up to look down on him, and that's why we've invited Mr. De Niro to come deliver those remarks in person. I'll tell you what this was.
Quintessential New Yorker. He's also a New Yorker, and he's always played iconic mafia roles, right? Where Donald Trump wishes that he were a mafia boss, like he'd like to hang around. All that was another one of those things, and so that's how dare he speak out against him? Because Robert De Niro makes Donald Trump look like the wuss that he is.
Amen. Could not have said it better. And this originated, frankly, in my frustration that anytime you have someone like a Donald Trump take the podium, the response, even if the Democratic Party tries hard, it always pales in comparison. You have a person doing the rebuttal, standing in a quiet room. They don't have an audience cheering them. They deliver remarks. Democrat or Republican, we almost always mock the person who does the rebuttal.
Yeah.
And my feeling was, hopefully the party's going to have a really good rebuttal speaker this year. But we also need a room that's loud, that has a lot of speakers. That's right. Marco Rubio grabbing the bottle of water. we need a moment that's as big as that moment. And so I said to our team, look, Donald Trump's got a chamber of 535 people shouting, cheering, clapping. We need to have something similar. We found a venue, the National Press Club in DC, that can hold almost the same amount of people. And rather than one rebuttal speaker, we said, let's do 4 hours of rebuttals against this guy, because this is the most corrupt presidency in American history, without exception. We can't just send one speaker out to tell the country that. We need to be so much louder than he is. Everyone is volunteering to be here at that event. We're so excited about it. And it's not just the event itself. People who buy tickets to the event, all net proceeds go towards actions to counter Donald Trump's abuses of power, get donated to organizations that are on the front lines fighting back. So folks can watch it for free. The live stream will be nationwide, but if they want to buy an in-person ticket or virtual ticket, they can help fund those efforts. And like you said, Joe, they can go to defiance.org/SOTU, or you can just go to defiance.org and find it on the main page. We're very, very excited about this. We're burning the midnight oil, getting ready for the event. We're going to make this the biggest rebuttal that there's ever been to a State of the Union. And I think we're going to make this an annual thing. I think every year we're going to try to make these bigger and bigger and bigger while Donald Trump is in office, and show that the defiance in this country is so much louder than these complicit, slavish loyalists that he's got around him trying to break the Constitution.
Yes, and yes. Good for you, Miles. This is a great idea. Hopefully I'll be able to join you guys next Tuesday to be a part of this as well. And it depends on whether I get called in to do State of the Union commentary. But if not, I will be there with you guys in solidarity, of course. And I'm so glad that you're doing this, because it's similar to kind of the way Principles First and others started to do like anti-CPAC, like the counter programming to the CPAC stuff. And so this was another really good idea to do it, because the State of the Union, it used to be one of my favorite events of the year when I worked on Capitol Hill, just because there was a lot of pomp and circumstance and it was really cool. And just like the security apparatus and the receptions. And I used to go with my boss every year to this it was like an oyster and stew fest I forgot who put it on. It was always the best.
Oh, that sounds good.
Oh my God, it was always so good. Yes. Oh, it was great. And it was like an annual thing every year with all the members. And I used to joke with my old boss that he was not allowed to fall asleep during the State of the Union, because if I caught him, I'd say to him, if I catch you on C-SPAN napping, I'm quitting. So you are not doing it, because that used to be kind of like an insider funny joke we would make with the staffers. We'd point out whose bosses were asleep during the State of the Union, because they were very uneventful of things. You know what I mean?
This year it's going to be Trump.
It's not like that anymore. Yeah,
it's not like that. Well, and you know what, Tara, we have a number of members of Congress that have decided to skip the State of the Union this year and come to this rebuttal. A number of the members of Congress that are speaking at this event are just skipping it. They're not even going to the floor. They don't want to see Donald Trump. They want to be there rebutting that. I predict we have a historic number of people in the political opposition skipping the actual remarks, which is very exciting. And I will also say to folks, people who come in person, there's I think last check with the team, there's a couple dozen in-person tickets for this event. There will be a historic moment that they get to be a part of at the end after Robert De Niro is done speaking. actually, something you're probably going to see in the press, a moment that's going to happen. And people who come and join us in person are going to get the chance to participate in that if they want to. And I'll just tease that one of our partners for the event is the Portland Frog Brigade. These are the folks that you saw dress in blow-up frog suits outside the ICE facilities in Portland and elsewhere when Donald Trump said, these people are terrorists and insurrectionists. The terrorists showed up in blow-up frog suits with boomboxes, dancing to EDM music, totally showing that the emperor has no clothes, that these are lies meant to distract the American people, and that indeed we are a lawful, peaceful, and defiant opposition in this country. They are participating in this event. There may be some very special activations involving people in blow-up frog suits that night, perhaps by the hundreds.
It also, I love all of that, and it gives people a place to go, right? Like people want to, where everybody knows your name. You know what I mean? Like people, honestly, right now, I think what people want more than anything is a place to congregate with like-minded people, so that they don't feel alone and isolated. And seeing Donald Trump on that dais, it has it, whether or not he deserves to be there, which he clearly doesn't. It just gives it a certain legitimacy that sucks, right? It's an optic that sucks, and you just get smacked in the face with the reality of how the fuck is he back there. So when you can be with others in community and pushing back together, it's so empowering and it's so important, and people are so hungry for that right now. So that's why, one of the reasons why I think this is awesome too. I think it's fucking fantastic. I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm going to I have a code for people to discount if you want to buy tickets, but all the money goes to such a good fucking thing to keep fighting, keep fighting. And that's what we should be doing, lifting all boats together and building
from the ground up. From the ground up.
Amen.
So this is awesome. Miles Taylor, thank you so much for spending your Tuesday at noon with us and with all of our viewers on our second big effing deal of the month so far. And so if you had one line, Miles, that you wanted to leave people with, what would you say is your big effing deal? And say it. Use the term.
It's this. The defiance in this country has grown so much bigger than the autocratic side. I mean, I keep saying it again and again. In 2026, we have rounded a corner. And I think people feel it too. Last year, they felt like repressed by this guy. Every day was bad news. We weren't going to win in this fight. We had no hope. This year, the folks that are resisting this administration, we have grown into a massive nationwide army. The energy is there. You are hearing more optimism from people about this. We are fighting. We are going to win. We're going to protect our Constitution. That's the big effing deal. And by the way, that this show is fantastic. And I may not recover from the belly laughing earlier. For that reason alone, people have got to tune in, it can't all be doom and gloom. We've got to be able to laugh about it sometimes.
That's right. Laughter does good like medicine. Miles Taylor.
You two are amazing. I'm so grateful for you, friends.
Thank you, Miles.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome.
I know. He's just, Miles is a trip, and he's really, as someone who's been targeted by name by this administration, has basically told them to fuck all the way off. And not only is he telling them to do that, he's turning it into action. And any way that we can be supportive of that, I'm all for it. And one of the organizations that is supporting whistleblowers, I am now a board member of as of last week. And I'm very, very, very proud and excited and honored and humbled to be a part of such an important organization, Whistleblower Aid, that helps support whistleblowers to come forward, because that's what we need. We need those people to do that and support them. So all good news. All right. So we went a little long with Miles, but we're going to go through our BFDs.
That's
here.
Not what Christy said.
Here we go. Oh my God.
Sorry,
Lord.
The Office. I'm so sorry.
Good thing we don't have an HR department.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, this is why the new media, man. This is where it's at. They can't say that shit on CNN.
We can say whatever the fuck we want.
That's right.
So Joe, your BFD this week is about censorship and what the latest here in this intimidation factor coming out of this administration. Go for it.
Yep, it's twofold. It's exactly what you said. It's this administration trying to censor. And on the other side of that is Stephen Colbert saying, go FCC yourself. Okay, so I'm going to let Stephen Colbert explain what is going on in his own words. Sam, play that clip, please.
You know who is not one of my guests tonight? That's Texas State Representative James Tallarico. He was supposed to be here, but we were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers, who called us directly, that we could not have him on the broadcast. Then I was told in some uncertain terms that not only could I not have him on, I could not mention me not having him on. And because my network clearly doesn't want us to talk about this, let's talk about this. You've probably heard.
I mean,
love Colbert.
Love him so much. He's done in May. He has no fucks left to give.
Nope.
Who can blame him?
Nope.
So they sent a memo out last week or the 21st of February, or 21st of January, pardon me, about some weird old antiquated rule. I forget what it's called. Related to, you know what it's called?
Yeah, the Fairness Act. It's the equal time thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So equal time, if you're going to have somebody like Tallarico on, you have to have all of his opponents on as well. But there was an exemption or a carve out sort of for news and for these talk shows, right?
Yeah.
And it's been one of those things that
doesn't apply to Colbert.
Right. Bill Clinton famously on Arsenio Hall, right? Like we all remember that moment. And I don't remember seeing the people running against Bill Clinton getting equal airtime. What it is, and it's interesting because I think he called him a bowling pin, which is hilarious. The head of the FCC right now, who's a Trump toady, Stephen Carr. Is it Stephen Carr? What's his first name? I forget what his first name is. Loser, whatever. Carr.
Yeah.
He is
Brandon
Carr, right. He is saying that the reason that they're doing this now is because these talk shows have become overtly political, which is him telling on himself, and every accusation is a confession. But what they're doing is they're trying to use, state propaganda arms to control what we see. And for them in this moment, seeing someone like Tallarico, who is, there's the very hot Texas Senate primary going on in the state of Texas right now. We have incredible candidates in that race. And there is a real palpable danger that we're going to flip that Senate seat. And Donald Trump et al., they don't want people seeing those people on TV, both criticizing him and getting attention nationally. So this is yet another example of Bari Weiss at CBS bending the knee, obeying in advance, capitulating, and kissing the ring. Brendan Carr is just the heavy, and Stephen Colbert saying no, which is exactly what we need in this moment. And I have people in my comments like, yeah, fuck yeah, more of this. This is what I voted for. You fucking idiots. Let me talk to you for a second. Because if you think in any way, shape, or form that a state-run media is going to be good for you, if you think that you're somehow going to get accurate, honest, up-to-date, real, scientific data and information that might just pertain to your safety, health, and welfare from a government that's saying, we don't want to tell you anything. You're an idiot. You're a fucking idiot, and you're in a cult. So telling me to cry harder over Donald Trump's regime forcing CBS to censor its contributors is stupid and short-sighted. So I'm happy that Stephen Colbert put this on YouTube, which you can go and see it if you want to. And he told CBS and the Trump administration to fuck off.
Yep. And it's probably going to get more attention now and more eyeballs on it than if it had just run normally.
Yep.
So, it completely backfired. And, in full transparency, I'm working on with the pro Jasmine Crockett PAC side of things, the soft side money, because I want to see Jasmine win the primary. But the fact that Tallarico was being censored like this on Colbert, that they came for him, is not okay. Like, it's just like none of it is okay. And it's the broader point of everything that's going on here that is consistent with the magnification of our corporate media. Again, it speaks to why we're all doing what we're doing in these venues like this, and why it's so important to support the independent voices and those of us in what we're doing. Because it just came out now that Warner Brothers Discovery is now re-entertaining Paramount's bid to take them over. It was supposed to be a done deal with the Netflix deal, but Paramount Skydance, which is owned by Larry Ellison's son, David Ellison, and it now owns CBS, right? They're the parent company of CBS. They want to get CNN. And the whole Warner Brothers Discovery deal that the Trump administration is not happy about, they're basically forcing them to look at this again. So there's now a chance again that CNN could be taken over by the same people who've taken over CBS. This is, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what's going on here. So
and Anderson Cooper is leaving 60 Minutes, and 60 Minutes is one of those really sad stories because I grew up and I cut my teeth on 60 Minutes. And to see, I know that there are still good people over there, and that breaks my heart too. It's hard to stay on that ship as it gets closer and closer to that iceberg, and I don't fault anybody for leaving, but my heart goes out to anybody who's there trying to do the work still.
CBS, 60 Minutes used to be the gold standard. CBS was the gold standard. It was Walter Cronkite, it was the Dan Rather, the Nightly News, like all of those things. But 60 Minutes was the gold standard in long form news magazine investigative coverage. And they have just tried to destroy it, which is what fascists do, and what and putting in this new leadership over there to do their dirty work for them is just so transparent. It's so obvious what Barry Weiss and them are doing.
Yeah, and it's a good segue to your BFD because they're not doing anything with that doctor that's all over, the one who said, I need me some JE time.
Yes.
Have you seen that? So he works for CBS, and unlike every other freaking industry around the planet, he's not moving.
Well, that's actually true. It's a good transition into my BFD, which is about how the Epstein files are not going away, and nor should they. And CBS News has this medical analyst guy who is a shady character who has hawked all kinds of bullshit lifestyle and wellness stuff that's not medically acceptable, really. But he's been able to kind of float around. I don't even think he graduated from medical school or something like that. What's his name? Peter Attia, something like that. My good friend, Dr. Vin Gupta, who is a legit real doctor, okay, has been like apoplectic about this because the medical community of real professionals are looking at this guy going, why? First of all, he shouldn't have been platformed in the first place. But secondly, after what came out in the Epstein files about him cozying up to Jeffrey Epstein and talking about whether women are gluten-free and how much protein is in our genitals. Okay. That is in the Epstein files. Don't take my word for it. You can go read it for yourself. When this came out, CBS said, no, we're not going to get rid of him, which is just crazy. I mean, you talk about discredited, like, good God. So it's just one of many long things, but it transitions me into my BFD, which is about the fact that the Epstein files, so people might be thinking, oh, is there Epstein fatigue, or why are we still talking about this? And no, we're still talking about this because it is one of the biggest scandals in our modern history here, not only in America, but overseas in Europe as well. And the people who are being held accountable in Europe, we're seeing it's like taking down the royal family. It's, they're heads of state. People, the prime minister could potentially lose his job over it, and he wasn't even in the damn files.
Ex-prime minister of Norway.
Right. Like, it's just, and then you've got heads of law firms and all kinds of, the guy that's the agent, Casey Wasserman, Wasserman. Yeah. That could lose the,
he's running the Olympic committee.
He should. Absolutely. They all should. They all should. I don't care what side of the aisle they're on.
That lawyer, the woman who was White House counsel for Obama.
Yes.
Also stepped down. Yeah.
Right. Goldman Sachs and, all this, like, so the tentacles of this are really extensive. But yet the people inside our own government, the half a dozen, like Howard Lutnick and all these others who are in there, and people close to Trump, like Tom Barrack, Trump himself, for fuck's sake, Melania's role, like all of this, like, oh no, nothing to see here. Pam Bondi actually had the audacity to say that we've released everything. We're compliant with the Transparency Act. They wrote a late night letter on Saturday night on Valentine's Day of a holiday weekend to say, okay, yeah, here's some more names. I think we had the headline for that. Here's some more names. There's 300 more names, and we're done here.
Yep.
What? We're done here. No, we're not done here. And even
Elvis
Donald
will
Trump,
never get away with this now.
Right. And Janis Joplin from the grave, apparently. It's absurd. It's absurd. And Donald Trump even said on Air Force One, and Sam, I think we have the clip. Let's play that. He says, I'm done. I'm exonerated. I had nothing to do with it.
Nothing to hide. I've been exonerated. I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. They went in hoping that they'd find it and found just the opposite. I've been totally exonerated. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein was fighting that I don't get elected with some author, a sleazebag, by the way. And I've been totally exonerated. No, they're getting pulled in, and that's their problem. I don't know. They're going to have to see what happens. But I watched her in Munich, and she seriously has Trump derangement syndrome.
Totally exonerated. He is in the Epstein files that we've seen, and now we don't even think we've seen half, right?
Right.
This is now the new reporting. He is in the Epstein files. More than Jesus is in the Bible. More than Voldemort is in Harry Potter. Okay? This motherfucker, they should change the name of the Epstein files to the Trump files featuring Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
He is not exonerated. It wasn't the perfect phone call. He it wasn't a Russia hoax. COVID wasn't either. And he is not whatever the opposite of totally exonerated is
right.
what he is.
Yes.
In fact, right? Like the thing is, whatever we've seen so far, 1 million, they think, plus redactions related to his name. 950,000 redactions. We have whatever's left over. Again, we haven't seen the even half of what's out there. So what else is out there? That's what I want to know. What does it say about him?
Right. If they're still fighting to keep the rest, because what's been released so far has been pretty horrific. Pretty horrific.
Yeah.
And yet they're still trying to say, nope, we're done. There's nothing more to see here. And the survivors, their lawyers, Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna, like all these people are going, we've seen some of these unredacted files and like, oh my God. And I mean, when you have Lauren Boebert shook, okay, like Lauren Boebert, for God's sakes, we talked about this last week. I mean, there is clearly so much more here, and they're still trying to hide it. So God only knows what. So for those who are thinking that this doesn't matter, that it does, because this is what CNN ran this morning. They ran the numbers, and the American people aren't happy.
We spoke about the fact that Donald Trump's overall approval rating, his net approval rating, was at a record low for term number 2. What is the worst issue for Donald Trump of any of the major issues? Look at this. We got them all up on the screen. Immigration, foreign policy, the economy, trade and tariffs, and then all the way down at the bottom is the Epstein case. Look, he's underwater on immigration, foreign policy, the economy, and tariffs, all between -16 and -25 points. The Epstein case, though, is on another planet. Look at this. The Epstein case is not the story the Trump administration and Trump in particular and Republicans at large want in the news, because it is a big political loser for him. But look at the Epstein case. Just 55% of Republicans approve of Trump on the Epstein case. It is something that divides Republicans, and it is something that the overall electorate really doesn't like. I mean,
just look at Joe Rogan. Like, I don't want to use Joe Rogan as the gold standard of anything,
but still,
he is a good bellwether,
right?
For
that,
right?
Yeah.
And what is breaking through, and he's like, this Epstein stuff looks really bad.
Yeah, you
like,
think?
You know, and anecdotally, I have a friend who was having breakfast at a local diner or breakfast place or whatever, and the waitresses in very red part of New Jersey were talking about the Epstein files, and not in a flattering light for Donald Trump. He's like, I've never even heard them talk about politics before. So yeah, it is breaking. Look, first of all, we're talking about pedophilia.
Right. That's why it's breaking through. Because when you're like a kitty diddler, people know that that's like not okay. It doesn't matter whether you're on the right or left or whoever. This is something that is terrible, no matter where you are in the political spectrum. And frankly, if you're putting this in political terms, and for us over at Seneca Project, you know, right now we are, you know, trying to build our coffers. We're trying to raise money so that we can scale up, because it is a midterm election time, and we can't produce content and, you know, place it where we need to without the funding. So this is the time that we're using to help raise the money to do all of this, because we're, as a women-led organization, this Epstein stuff is so just reprehensible that for women, we are the ones who have been impacted by this the most. We're often the ones, not saying that men aren't victims of this kind of stuff too, but this is primarily about women. And it's about, we need to put politicians on the spot. Are you on the side of protecting predators or not? Because this speaks to your judgment on everything else.
Agreed.
If you cannot take a position that says that I am 100% against this, and I think it should be the people should be held accountable, I don't care what side of the aisle they're on, then you are disqualified in our opinion from anything else. I don't want you making decisions about anything else, because that could have been your daughter or your sister or your wife, and yet here you are in a position of power. You want us to give you the responsibility of representing the American people, and you can't even take a full stand against something as horrific as this. So we already, Seneca put out America is Watching about this entire thing, where we are saying to people, the American people are watching what's going on, and we will never forget who protected predators. Yeah. That goes from every level, whether it's the media, whether it's like the Megyn fucking Kellys of the world, whether it's the people over at Fox News, whether it's the right-wing ecosystem, or anyone in that part, or whether it's the people in Congress, or whether it's the people in business, wherever, we will not forget. And the way you don't forget is you continue to bring attention to it, which is partially what we're doing over at Seneca with our advocacy for women's rights and our pro-democracy and holding people accountable mission here. We are galvanizing people behind these things, because you have to hold the people in power accountable for these wrongs, or if you expect to change them. You can't claim that you're the party of family values. You want to protect children. And they ran entire campaigns about protecting children from the pedophiles. Yep. And here they are supporting people who are protecting pedophiles. We need to call them out on it. So that's going to be part of our work here in 2026 with Seneca.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, the hypocrisy of them saying that the real threat to children were drag queens and trans athletes on their daughters' softball teams and books with, characters that have two mommies. Meanwhile, actively, not just protecting. Now what they're doing is, in my opinion, when you see Howard Lutnick standing by his side a few days after we had side-by-side of him saying, I cut ties with Epstein. My wife and I were so grossed out because he was talking about these massages and I never, ever saw him again. And then we're like, well, there you are in the Epstein files, going to his island many years later.
With your wife and your kids.
Right. Shared businesses with him and they were neighbors. Yep. And there's a mask in that weird dental chair room that sure does look an awful lot like Lutnick. But Donald Trump made a deliberate decision to bring him out and stand by his side. And to me, what they are saying is, yeah, okay, this is really bad. What the fuck are you going to do about it? We have all the cards. We have all the toys. Yep. We win. And so that's the kind of shit too, where it is a precipice that we are on as a country right now. It is a moment of choosing. It is a moment of reckoning. And we have to decide by holding every one of these Republicans who can look the other way, which disincludes Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, Thomas Massie in this moment, right? That's it. That's it.
Which is
everybody
crazy.
Else look the other way.
Yep.
We have senators who, by the way, are up for re-election this year in Ohio, who took money from Les Wexner this year and then voted no on releasing these files. So Sherrod Brown, guys, that's just 2 words for you in Ohio. You guys love Sherrod Brown. Let's go back to some Sherrod Brown, okay? Good guy, beautiful, amazing wife. These people, they all have to be held accountable, and we have to all stand up. And like you said, this is about protecting children. This is not partisan. I don't care if it's Bill Gates. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton. I don't care if it's Captain Kangaroo. I don't care. I don't care how you vote. If you did this to children, fuck off. Also, by the way, just
to be clear, it was Senator Moreno from Ohio who took the money, right? Not Sherrod Brown.
No, it was the guy who took JD Vance's seat.
That's Moreno, wasn't it?
No, it's the other guy.
Oh, the other guy? Well, it wasn't Sherrod Brown. No. Just to be clear, Sherrod Brown's the good guy that we want back to be senator. Yes.
Correct. Sorry. It's the guy who took JD Vance's seat. So he is up for re-election in this cycle.
Right.
Well, he's because he's not even up for re-election. He was never elected. If anybody knows his name, guys, help me, please.
Yeah, why am I drawing a blank
on that? But just a sidebar on this party saying that they're the party of protecting children. Those concentration camps we were talking about earlier that are being built to house up to 10,000 people. The one they're fleecing all of us for by inflating the price and making the money go into Russian oligarchs' pockets. There's a detention center, a concentration camp in Texas called Dilley. You guys probably know it because Liam Ramos was sent there and then returned from there. And now the Department of Homeland Security and the DOJ are trying to send him back there, which is reprehensible and disgusting. This is not a party that protects children. Okay. Nope. There are 2-month-old babies there. There are children who are cutting themselves there. There was a little girl came here to meet her mother to go to Disney World who has been there for 112 days. Awful. And this is a good segue real quick, not like it needs to be real quick, but we had videos of children running away from our government right here in the state of New Jersey. They were at a bus stop in the morning. I wrote about this on my Substack. It makes me want to cry. You guys can see the video. They are running and screaming through their apartment complex, running away from their bus stop. Their bus driver had to drive around in circles around this apartment complex to try and gather them all up.
Yep.
Because they're afraid of our government.
Because ICE was doing an operation in their apartment complex. They saw the unmarked trucks and they fled. Yep. Do we have the video?
I don't know if Sam has that one. He might have that one. If not,
it's
definitely on my Substack. But again, it speaks to this party lying and gaslighting all of us. They say they protect children because they're banning books, but they'll still allow for AR-15s to exist, for school shootings to continue to happen. They'll still allow for these children to be traumatized in Dilley. They're still okay with looking at these children running from their own bus stops, right? They're not pro-protect kids. They're pro-forced birth. It's bullshit. And I'm so tired of it. I'm so sick and tired of it. I do think this is the kind of shit that pierces that bubble too.
It does. And it's the hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy about children. There was just like in Trump 1.0, the kids in cages pierced through. Okay. That cut through. And because people were even all those Christians and everyone else, they were all like, maybe we're not okay with the kids in cages thing. Yeah. Maybe Jesus wouldn't approve of that. You think? So this again is again, we have Americans being executed in the streets by overzealous, illegally operating Gestapos and chasing kids, shooting teachers, lying about it. Like all of this kind of stuff people are starting to say it's too much. And even the ICE detention, the story we were talking about before with the ICE detention center, the one for $128 million is in a town called Social Circle, Georgia, which I'd never heard of. It's a weird name. I don't know. It's giving me commune vibes. But this here, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did a 2.5 minute package on this where they interviewed the people in this little town. There's 5,000 people in this town. This warehouse detention center internment camp thing that they want to convert. It's a whole 10,000 people. So they want to detain warehouse 10,000 people, double the population of this little small town. And it's an all Republican town. They were saying they were admittedly Trump supporters. They're like, there isn't a Democrat for 100 miles of here, not one that will admit it publicly anyway. But this is not what we voted for. There was one woman on the city council who said, I supported Donald Trump and I regret that vote. And this was an older white woman. So this is piercing through because people are like, whoa, this is over going too far. What are we doing here?
Yeah, and here in New Jersey, not far from me at all, kind of halfway between where you're from and where I'm from, is a town called Roxbury.
Yeah,
and Sam, we have a clip from one of the town hall meetings or whatever, town council meetings.
Was it a protest or
there
the
were
town council?
Protests, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if Sam has this. I sent a video in our chat of a guy. It's also that these communities cannot sustain.
Right.
They can't sustain these concentration camps.
Right. They don't have the infrastructure.
Right.
Like that town in Georgia, they said they're like take the politics and the indecency out of it. Right. The fact that the federal government didn't consult the local officials at all about this, which is again highly unusual. If you're going to try to, put something this large into a community, you need to find out, do they have the water and sewer? Do they have proper fire and police? They said this town has like 4 or 5 full-time police officers and like 3 firemen. So full-time. How the hell are they going to provide proper services for a 10,000 person internment camp? It's ridiculous, just on a practical sense.
Right. And people of Roxbury are lining the streets and getting out and protesting. And, again, it's quite red out here where I am. And a friend of mine went by and she's like, I've never seen this kind of protest at all for anything. And they're lining up to go and say, no, not here. And I'm so proud because this isn't political either. This is communities.
Yes.
And these are the kinds of things that galvanize communities. And I think that's a great thing because I've often asked myself the question since I was a kid and I first read the Diary of Anne Frank, what did the good Germans do? Like, what did the regular Germans do? Did they look away? Did they say, I'm not comfortable with that and then shrug? Or did they say, no, not here, not in my backyard? And I think we're seeing a lot of people here in the United States of America right now, hi, Minnesota, you're fucking badasses, saying no, thank you.
That's right. And it matters. It matters. When people stand up and speak out, it matters. And we're seeing that reflected across the country. And even in the pullout of Minneapolis, of those operations, that it was because of the bravery of the citizens on the ground and the fact that they documented what went on, and the rest of the country went, holy fucking shit, this is not okay. And, now they are still, this is not the end. It's just one battle in this war, but it shows that it does matter. The protests and speaking out and putting pressure on elected officials, particularly in the midterm election, because they want to save their own asses, it works. So keep up the good work. It's happening all over the country. So we're very happy to see that. So I think that because we have talked about all kinds of things, we should probably do our little BFD on Obama.
Okay.
Because it's unless you want to do the other two, it's up to you.
No, I think that's right. I think that's a good place to end. I think that it's one of those things that it's a good, happy place, and it's uplifting and it's hopeful, right?
Yes.
That word, hope.
Hopeful. Yes. Hope is not a strategy, but it is a weapon. It's a tool in the battles. So to win the war. So yesterday was President's Day, and George W. Bush threw a little shade at Trump, but I didn't think it was enough. I've called the Bush family out more than once, and I happen to like George W. Bush in my older days. And I'm like, dude, you should be speaking out about this, because I know that the Bush family is appalled by what's happening with Trump. And it's like, you don't have anything else to lose. Speak out. But he threw a little shade, didn't name Trump by name, but where I'm like, all right, that's one step, I guess. But fuck him. President Obama was at the All-Star game this weekend, and it was very cool because he was sitting courtside and there was an errant ball that went out of bounds, and he caught the ball, and there was like this cool exchange with him and one of the players. Watching the Secret Service guys kind of like eyeballing what was going on was also cool. I was like, look at them. I'm like, what do you think is going to happen at the All-Star game? Which you never know. Right. The reception after the horrible treatment of the Obamas by this administration, most recently that disgusting ape video that Trump posted and then tripled down on, by the way. Okay. He brought it up again on Friday. That he went after a couple of senators who were basically like, this wasn't all right. Now he's mad at them about it.
Oh yeah, Katie Britt.
Britt, she's dead to him. What? Okay. Again, revealing yourself for the racist that you are. Yep. Well, the fact that actually a couple of Republican senators and people spoke out about that, again, we hadn't seen that before. So I guess, I don't know if I want to give you a gold star for doing the right thing. I kind of, it's like the bare minimum. Right. But this reception at the NBA All-Star game of President Obama and Michelle Obama was pretty cool. Do we have the clip?
That's awesome.
Very different from Donald Trump and his people getting booed, and JD Vance getting booed at the Olympics.
Oh my God. And Donald Trump couldn't even go to the Super Bowl because he was afraid. You get food. I mean, come on. No, that's great. By the way, Michelle looks amazing. Right?
Listen, post-presidency is treating her well.
Yeah. No, it's a reminder of a gentler, sweeter, kinder, happier time. That's for sure. But also the roar of that crowd tells me that a lot of people are looking for something, right? Something that reminds them that, hope is possible, but that there are still good people out there. I've been waiting for the Obamas to kind of get more involved right now, because I do believe that he is one of those people who can really bring a lot of folks together. Obviously, 1-2 terms. And he's an incredible speaker, etc. So I like seeing him back out there, and that was very uplifting and happy. And I'm going to the Knicks this weekend, so I'm excited.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm taking the kids. I can't wait.
Long-suffering Knicks fan here. We have to figure out a way to get us to go to a Knicks game together next time I'm in New York.
Yes, please. Yeah, but no, that's a great clip. It makes me really happy, and and
it's also a way of them being like, "F you, racist piece of shit! Like, you're gonna go and post this kind of stuff against us. Who do you think you're talking to? Who do you think's more beloved? Because Donald Trump is in the toilet tank of presidential approval, and only second to himself in the lowest presidential approval ever. And Barack Obama is one of the most popular and successful presidents in history, according to the polls.
And something Obama said on a recent podcast that he did about that video was really interesting and important, and a really helpful reminder, because why Donald Trump does those things is that he's insecure and he's jealous and he's envious, and he's always going to be inferior to Barack Obama. So he does that to get us to stare at that, right? To look at that, for that thing that has nothing to do with Donald Trump's worth, because he has none, but for that thing to occupy space, so that they're not looking at how diminutive he looks in Barack Obama's shadow. And what Barack Obama said about that was, don't focus on what's on your screen. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on what he's actually doing.
Yes.
Because when he does this stuff, he's both trying to distract you from what he's doing and not doing, and he's trying to take up all the oxygen in the room. So don't give it to him. And it's hard, because we want to, because we have that righteous indignation, because we're outraged and we're furious and we're offended and we're angry. And it's easy. Those are really easy emotions to reach for. God knows I fucking live there, right? But his reminder was so important. Don't let him do that. It didn't bother me. When Obama's like, it doesn't bother me. That's how you get back at a bully. That's how you take the power back. And so that was a really helpful reminder, particularly for somebody like me who likes to punch throats all the time. And we were all rightfully outraged, but he's right to not give him all that oxygen.
Well, I think there are certain circumstances where proverbially you have to punch back. Yeah. And I think that it's literally the 1-2 punch, but there are ways to be above the fray and not give oxygen to things, but then also you have to have a strategy of pushing back. You can't let a bully all the time, because sometimes you need to just pop them back in the mouth and set them straight. And that's what we do politically. That's what we do here with embarrassing them and shaming them and exposing them. That's what we do at Seneca when we are, when we go out and we put those videos out that are unapologetic in the face of pointing out what these people do, and it coming from women too.
Oh boy.
They don't like it when it comes for us. They have a particular venom for us, which makes it even more empowering.
Exactly.
So anyway, on that note, that is this week's edition of Big Effing Deal. Thank you for everyone who hung out with us. Big thank you to our buddy Miles Taylor. Make sure you go to defiance.org and check him out. Make sure you follow Joe on Substack. Make sure you follow me and follow Seneca at senecaproject.us. And we will see you guys next Tuesday for the BFD State of the Union edition.
Yeah.
Bye, guys. Bye.